The massive chamber stretched out like a crystal cathedral beneath the alien sky of Nexus Prime. 12 towering seats arranged in a perfect circle dominated the space, each one designed for a different species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The air hummed with translation devices and the soft glow of holographic displays that floated between the seats like digital ghosts. Ambassador John Carter walked into the chamber with measured steps, his black diplomatic uniform crisp and professional. Behind him followed Dr. Lisa Murphy, a woman in her 40s whose calm eyes missed nothing, and Captain Kyle Brooks, whose military bearing remained respectful but alert. The three humans moved with the quiet confidence of people who had done this many times before. The Galactic Council had summoned them here today for what they called a discussion about humanity's future in the galaxy. Carter knew better than to trust such polite language. In his 20 years of diplomatic service, he had learned that the most dangerous conversations often began with the friendliest words. Prime Minister Vexthal of the Zeltharian Empire rose from his seat. His reptilian features were sharp and predatory, with golden eyes that seemed to pierce through everything they looked at. His scaled hands gestured toward the center of the chamber, where a holographic display began to shimmer into existence. Honored representatives of Earth, Vexthal began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been told no. We have gathered today to address concerns that have been growing among the council members regarding your species' recent activities. The holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed in different colors, each representing the territory of various council species. But scattered throughout the map were newer points of light, bright blue dots that seemed to multiply as Carter watched. In the past 50 years, continued Vexthal, humanity has established colonies in over 300 star systems. Your expansion rate exceeds that of any species in recorded galactic history. Carter maintained his diplomatic smile while his fingers moved almost invisibly across a small tablet he held at his side. The device was connected to something called the Unity Grid, a quantum communication network that linked every human diplomatic mission, military base, and colony across the galaxy. Few outside humanity knew it existed. Hive Queen Zeratic spoke next, her insectoid features clicking with agitation. Her species had once controlled vast portions of the galaxy through sheer numbers and hive mind coordination. The human expansion pattern shows signs of strategic planning that concerns us. Your colonies are not randomly placed. They form defensive networks and control important trade routes. Dr. Murphy stepped forward slightly, her voice respectful but firm. Your Majesty, humanity has always been transparent about our expansion goals. We seek worlds suitable for our biology and needs. If our colonies appear strategic, it is only because we choose locations that can support our people. The Resonance Speaker, a being of pure crystalline energy, vibrated with harmonic frequencies that the translation devices converted into words. The concern is not your expansion alone, but the military buildup that accompanies it. Intelligence reports suggest your colonies are far more heavily fortified than necessary for simple defense. Carter's smile never wavered as he responded. The galaxy can be a dangerous place, honored speaker. We have learned from the experiences of other species that adequate defense is essential for peaceful development. What the Council could not see was the flood of information flowing through Carter's tablet. Reports from human colonies, military assessments, and intelligence updates streamed past his fingers as he maintained perfect diplomatic composure. The Unity Grid was more than a communication system. It was the nervous system of a civilization that had been preparing for this moment since the day they first learned they were not alone in the universe. Captain Brooks remained silent, but his eyes tracked every movement in the chamber. His job was not to speak but to observe and report. Every gesture, every facial expression, every subtle shift in posture was being recorded and analyzed by experts back on Earth, who specialized in alien psychology and behavior, the aquatic Tydeckler. Murgon spoke from his water-filled chamber, his voice bubbling through the translation system. Perhaps the most troubling aspect is the speed of your technological development. Your ships, your weapons, your defensive systems, they advance at a rate that suggests you are not developing technology, but rather revealing it. We are a curious species, Carter replied. Human innovation has always been rapid when necessity demands it. The energy being Luxara pulsed with different colors as it communicated. The Council has served as the governing body of this galaxy for over 10,000 years. We have seen species rise and fall. We have maintained peace and order through careful oversight and measured expansion. Humanity's growth threatens this stability. Carter nodded respectfully. We appreciate the Council's long service to galactic peace. Humanity seeks only to find its place within the existing order. But beneath the diplomatic pleasantries, something else was happening. The tablet in Carter's hands was not just receiving information, it was also sending it. Every word spoken in this chamber, every gesture made by the Council members, every tactical detail revealed in their accusations was being transmitted across the galaxy through the Unity grid on distant worlds. Human leaders were analyzing the Council's words for threats and opportunities. Military commanders were updating their strategic assessments. Intelligence officers were cross-referencing the Council's statements with intercepted communications that had been gathered over years of careful observation. Vextel's golden eyes narrowed as he studied the human delegation. The Council has decided that humanity's expansion must be regulated. Your species has grown too quickly and too aggressively. You must surrender administrative control of half your colonies to Council oversight. The chamber fell silent. Carter's diplomatic smile remained in place, but something shifted in his posture. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Captain Brooks caught it immediately. The ambassador's shoulders squared slightly, and his grip on the tablet tightened. That is quite a significant request, Carter said carefully. Such a decision would require consultation with Earth's leadership. It is not a request, Hive Queen Zardak clicked sharply. It is a requirement. Compliance is not optional. The resonant speaker added its harmonic voice to the ultimatum. Furthermore, all human military forces must be reduced by 60%. Your weapons technology must be shared with the Council for evaluation. Your expansion must cease immediately. Carter's fingers moved across his tablet with practiced precision. 2 words appeared on the screen. Condition Amber. The message was transmitted instantly across the Unity grid, reaching every human commander, every colony administrator, every intelligence operative in the galaxy. The Council is prepared to enforce these requirements, Vextel continued. Economic sanctions will be implemented immediately. Military action will follow if necessary. We have dealt with aggressive species before, Ambassador Carter. They all learn to cooperate eventually. Carter looked around the chamber at the 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They sat in their towering chairs with the confidence of beings who had never been successfully challenged. Their body language spoke of absolute certainty that humanity would bend to their will as every other species had done. I understand the Council's position, Carter said with perfect diplomatic calm. However, such momentous decisions require time for proper consideration. I request a 72-hour recess to consult with my government. The Council members exchanged glances. This was exactly the response they had expected. Every species made the same request when faced with Council authority. It was a predictable delay tactic that would end in inevitable submission. Very well. Vextel agreed magnanimously. 72 hours. But understand that this is not a negotiation. These are the terms of humanity's continued existence in this galaxy. Carter bowed respectfully. Thank you for your patience, Prime Minister. We will return with Earth's response. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, none of the Council members noticed the slight smile that played at the corner of Carter's mouth. It was not the diplomatic smile he had worn throughout the session. This was something else entirely. Something that would have worried them greatly if they had understood what it meant. The humans left the chamber in silence, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind them, The council members began congratulating themselves on handling the human problem with their usual efficiency. They had no idea that everything had just changed. The Unity grid hummed with activity as Carter's reports flowed across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds in thousands of locations, humanity began to stir. The polite facade that had served them well for 50 years was about to be tested in ways the Council could never imagine, Carter's tablet displayed. One final message as they reached their transport. Message received. Preparations complete, awaiting your signal. The game was about to begin. The diplomatic shuttle carried the human delegation away from the council chambers in perfect silence. Ambassador Carter sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, but his eyes held a coldness that had not been there during the negotiations. Dr. Murphy reviewed her notes while Captain Brooks monitored the shuttle's sensors, watching for any signs they were being followed or observed. The shuttle docked with the UN's Harmony, a sleek vessel that appeared to be nothing more than a standard diplomatic transport. The ship's hull was painted in peaceful white and blue colors, with the United Nations symbol prominently displayed. To any observer, it looked exactly like what it claimed to be, a civilian vessel designed for peaceful negotiations. As soon as the airlock sealed behind them, the transformation began. Carter's diplomatic smile disappeared completely, replaced by the focused expression of a military commander. Dr. Murphy activated a series of hidden screens that emerged from the walls, displaying tactical information and intelligence reports. Captain Brooks moved to a communication console that had been disguised as a simple navigation station. Condition Amber is confirmed, Brooks announced as his fingers flew across the controls. All stations are responding. The main screen flickered to life, showing a secure communication channel. General Lisa Parker appeared on the display, her stern features framed by graying hair and sharp eyes. Behind her, the command center of Earth's global defense network hummed with activity. "John, we received your signal," General Parker said without preamble. "How bad is it?" Carter's voice carried no trace of his earlier diplomatic tone. "Worse than we anticipated. They want half our colonies under council control. 60% military reduction and complete technological transparency. They're treating this as a surrender, not a negotiation." Dr. Murphy leaned forward, her earlier calm replaced by analytical intensity. The psychological profiles were accurate. They see us as children who need to be disciplined. Vexthal especially showed classic dominance behaviors. They have no concept that we might resist. Admiral Jake Morrison joined the communication from his flagship, the massive carrier that served as the command vessel for humanity's Fifth Fleet. His weathered face showed the strain of years spent preparing for this moment. The Council has been moving their fleets into position for weeks. Our intelligence suggests they have forces stationed near 27 of our colonies. Captain Brooks pulled up a holographic display showing the positions of Council military assets. Red dots marked enemy fleet positions while blue dots showed human colonies. The pattern was clear. The Council had been preparing for war while pretending to seek peaceful resolution. "They think they're being clever," Brooks observed. "Standard intimidation tactics. Position overwhelming force, make demands, wait for submission." Carter nodded grimly. "They have no idea what they're actually threatening." He turned to Dr. Murphy. "What's your assessment of their species psychology?" Dr. Murphy activated her personal files, years of research scrolling across the screens. "The Zeltharians are pack hunters. They respect strength but only understand it in terms of direct confrontation. Show them superior firepower and they'll back down. The Hive Queen species depends entirely on centralized command. Cut off the Queen's control and their entire military structure collapses?" She continued, her voice gaining intensity. "The resonant speakers people communicate through harmonic frequencies. I've been working with our weapons division on sonic disruptors that could paralyze their entire fleet. The aquatic Tydecklers have enhanced hearing that makes them vulnerable to specific sound frequencies. Each species has exploitable weaknesses." General Parker's expression grew more serious. How long do we have? 72 hours, Carter replied. But I don't think they'll wait that long. Their fleet movements suggest they're preparing for immediate action if we refuse their terms. Admiral Morrison's image shifted as he consulted with his staff. Our preparations are complete. Every colony has activated their hidden defenses. The mining stations have revealed their true purpose. Our civilian fleet is ready to transform. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For 50 years, humanity had been playing a careful game. Every colony ship had carried not just settlers but military hardware disguised as civilian equipment. Every mining operation had been a cover for strategic resource gathering. Every diplomatic mission had been an intelligence operation. Agent Kate Sullivan appeared on a secondary screen, her youthful face hiding years of experience in deep space reconnaissance. I've been monitoring Council communications for the past 6 months. They're completely confident in their superiority. Internal messages show they believe human resistance will collapse within days. She pulled up intercepted communications. Alien text scrolling across the screen with human translations appearing alongside. Vexthal has been boasting to other council members about how easily they'll break human resolve. The Hive Queen has already begun dividing up our colonies among council species. They see this as a simple police action. Dr. Murphy smiled coldly. They're about to learn the difference between human civility and human weakness. Carter moved to the main communication console and opened a channel to Earth's leadership. President Robert Hayes appeared on screen, his usually calm demeanor showing signs of stress. Around him, the emergency session of the Global Defense Council was in full swing. Mr. President, the Council has issued their ultimatum, Carter reported. They expect complete submission within 72 hours. The President's response was immediate and decisive. Recommendation? Condition read, Carter said without hesitation. Full implementation of Protocol 7. The President nodded slowly. Are we certain there's no peaceful resolution? General Parker answered from her command center. Sir, they've positioned military forces near our colonies. Their communications indicate they view this as conquest, not negotiation. They're planning to attack regardless of our response. Admiral Morrison added his assessment. Their fleet positions are aggressive, not defensive. They're preparing to hit us hard and fast. The only question is whether we let them strike first, or we take the initiative. Carter looked around the room at his team. These people had spent decades preparing for this moment. Dr. Murphy's research had identified every weakness in Council psychology and biology. Captain Brooks had coordinated with intelligence services to map every enemy position. Agent Sullivan had infiltrated their communications. The Council made one critical error, Carter observed. They assumed that 50 years of diplomatic cooperation meant we were weak. They mistook our patience for inability. President Hayes made the decision. That would change the galaxy forever. Activate Protocol 7. All units are authorized to defend themselves by any means necessary. The gloves are off. The communication ended, leaving the diplomatic team in their hidden command center. Around them, the Unharmony continued to look like a simple diplomatic vessel, but appearances had always been deceiving where humanity was concerned. Carter opened a secure channel to every human commander in the galaxy. His voice carried across the quantum network that connected hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, and millions of people who had been waiting for this moment. This is Ambassador Carter with authorization from Earth Command. Condition read is now active. Protocol 7 is in effect. All units are cleared for full defensive response. The response was immediate. Across human space, colonies that had seemed peaceful began revealing their true nature. Mining stations transformed into fortified positions. Civilian ships activated weapon systems that had been hidden in their hulls. Scientific research stations began broadcasting tactical information to human fleets. Captain Brooks monitored the flood of confirmations pouring in through the Unity grid. All stations report ready. The Council has no idea what's coming. Dr. Murphy was already analyzing the psychological impact of what was about to happen. When they realize we've been preparing for this all along, it will shatter their confidence. They've never faced a species that could match their strategic thinking. Carter moved to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Council fleets were moving toward human colonies, confident in their superiority. In a few hours, they would discover that humanity had been playing a much longer game than anyone had imagined. The polite diplomatic facade was about to fall away completely. The Council was about to learn that Earth's children had inherited more than just their ancestors' curiosity and determination. They had also inherited their capacity for strategic thinking and their willingness to do whatever it took to protect their own. The galaxy was about to discover what humans were really capable of when they stopped being polite. The quantum message spread through the Unity grid like lightning through a neural network. In the time it took for a human heart to beat twice, the signal reached every corner of human space. Colony governors who had been playing the role of peaceful farmers suddenly became military commanders. Scientists who had spent years studying alien flora revealed themselves as intelligence officers. Miners who had been digging for precious metals activated weapon systems that had been hidden in asteroid belts for decades on Earth. President Robert Hayes stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the Global Defense Headquarters. The massive screens around him showed the real-time status of every human settlement in the galaxy. What had appeared to be a scattered collection of peaceful colonies now revealed itself as the most sophisticated military network ever created. "All stations report ready," announced General Parker as she coordinated the response from her command center. The Council has no idea what they're about to face. Governor Steve Clark of New Montana received the condition red signal while standing in what appeared to be a simple farming community. The rolling hills around the settlement were covered with grain fields and grazing animals, exactly what any observer would expect from an agricultural colony. But Steve knew better. He had been waiting for this moment for 15 years. "Citizens of New Montana," he announced over the colony's communication system, "Protocol 7 is now active. All civilian personnel report to designated shelters immediately." The transformation began instantly. The grain silos split open to reveal missile launchers. The farm equipment shed its disguise to become armored vehicles. The peaceful farmers who had been tending their crops moments before now moved with military precision as they activated defense systems that had been hidden beneath the soil. Underground, massive generators hummed to life, powering energy shields that surrounded the entire colony. The barn that had housed livestock for years opened to reveal a squadron of fighter craft. The water treatment facility became a command center, bristling with communication equipment and tactical displays. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. On the industrial colony of New Detroit, factory worker Amy Peterson activated the hidden weapons manufacturing systems that had been disguised as civilian production lines. The factories that had been producing farming equipment and consumer goods suddenly shifted to military hardware production. 15 years of preparation, Amy muttered as she watched assembly lines transform before her eyes. "Let's see how the Council likes our real industrial capacity." The mining colony of Asteroid Base 7 had been extracting rare metals from the asteroid belt for decades. Commander Rick Martinez had overseen the operation while secretly building something far more dangerous. The mining lasers that had been cutting through rock were actually high-powered weapons capable of destroying capital ships. The ore processing facilities had been refining materials for military use, not civilian markets. "All mining platforms report ready," Martinez announced to his team. "The Council thinks they're attacking defenseless colonies. They're about to learn otherwise." Back on the diplomatic vessel, Dr. Murphy monitored the psychological profiles of the Council members as reports flooded in from across human space. Her years of research into alien behavior patterns had prepared her for this moment. She understood exactly how each species would react when they realized they had been deceived. "The Zeltharians will be the first to break," she predicted as she analyzed the incoming data. "Their pack hunter mentality makes them vulnerable to psychological warfare. When they realize we've been planning this for decades, their confidence will shatter. Captain Brooks was coordinating with intelligence networks that had been operating in secret for years. Agent Kate Sullivan had not been working alone. Hundreds of human operatives had been gathering information about Council military capabilities, communication protocols, and strategic weaknesses. "We have complete tactical information on every Council fleet," Brooks reported. "Ship specifications, weapon capabilities, command structures, even personal information about their officers. They know almost nothing about our true capabilities." The Council members remained in their chambers on Nexus Prime, completely unaware of the storm that was brewing across the galaxy. Prime Minister Vexthal was meeting with other Council leaders, discussing how to divide up human territory once the inevitable surrender came. "The human colonies will provide excellent agricultural worlds for our expanding population," Vexthal told the assembled Council members. "Their industrial capacity will serve our manufacturing needs well." Hive Queen Zaratic agreed eagerly. "My species requires new hive worlds. The human colonies are perfectly suited for our needs. Once we remove the current inhabitants, we can begin immediate colonization." The resonant speaker pulsed with satisfied harmonics. "The humans have built impressive infrastructure. It will be most useful once it comes under proper Council management." None of them noticed the subtle changes in their own territories. Human intelligence operatives who had been posing as traders, diplomats, and researchers for years were now activating dormant networks. Communication relays that had been installed under the guise of improving trade relations were actually sophisticated surveillance systems on the water world of Aquatica, home to the Tydeclar species a human research station had been studying. Marine biology for 20 years, Dr. Jennifer Barnes had published numerous papers on alien ocean ecosystems and had been welcomed as a valuable scientific partner. But her real mission had been far different. "Sonic disruptors are in position," Dr. Barnes reported through encrypted channels. "The Tydeclar's enhanced hearing makes them extremely vulnerable to specific frequencies. We can disable their entire fleet without firing a single conventional weapon." Similar preparations were revealing themselves throughout Council space. The energy beings known as the Luxara had welcomed human scientists who claimed to be studying alternative energy sources. Those scientists had actually been mapping the harmonic frequencies that the energy beings used for communication and finding ways to disrupt them. Colonel Paul Wright had been serving as a military attaché on the Hive Queen's homeworld for 8 years. His official role was to facilitate peaceful cooperation between human and insectoid militaries. His real job had been to study the hive mind communication system and develop ways to sever the connection between the Queen and her warriors. "Hive disruption protocols are ready," Colonel Wright transmitted. "Once we cut the Queen's control, their entire military structure will collapse into chaos." The scope of humanity's preparation was staggering. Every diplomatic mission had been a cover for intelligence gathering. Every trade agreement had included hidden clauses that gave humans strategic advantages. Every scientific exchange had been an opportunity to study alien weaknesses. President Hayes reviewed the final status reports as they came in from across the galaxy. The plan that had been 50 years in the making was now ready for execution. Every human colony was fortified and armed. Every Council species had been studied and countered. Every possible scenario had been war-gamed and prepared for. "The Council believes they're dealing with a young species that can be easily intimidated," the President observed. "They have no idea that we've been preparing for this war since the day we first met them." Admiral Morrison's Fifth Fleet was already moving into position, but they were not alone. What had appeared to be civilian cargo, ships and passenger vessels, were revealing themselves as military transports and support craft. The merchant marine that had been carrying goods between human colonies was actually a disguised logistics network capable of supporting military operations across the galaxy. "All fleets report ready," Admiral Morrison announced. "The Council positioned their forces to intimidate us. Instead, they've walked into a trap that's been 50 years in the making. Dr. Murphy made her final assessment of the psychological impact their revelation would have on the Council. When they realize that every human they've ever met has been playing a role, it will destroy their confidence completely. They've never encountered a species capable of such long-term strategic deception. Ambassador Carter stood on the observation deck of the Un's Harmony, looking out at the stars. In a few hours, the Council would learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to appear harmless while preparing for war. The diplomatic mask was about to fall away completely. The Council was about to discover that Earth's children had inherited their ancestors' patience, planning ability, and absolute determination to protect their own. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped pretending to be weak. The polite facade that had served humanity for 50 years was about to be replaced by something far more dangerous. The Council had made the fatal mistake of confusing human civility with human weakness. They were about to pay the price for that error. The transformation was complete. Humanity was ready for war. The Council chambers on Nexus Prime had never seen anything like what was about to happen. Ambassador Carter walked back into the massive space with the same measured steps as before, but something fundamental had changed. The diplomatic smile was gone, replaced by the cold expression of someone who had stopped pretending to be harmless. Dr. Murphy and Captain Brooks followed behind him. Their earlier respectful demeanor transformed into the focused alertness of military officers. The three humans moved with a precision that made several Council members shift uncomfortably in their towering seats. Prime Minister Vexthal noticed the change immediately. His predator instincts, honed by millions of years of evolution, told him that something was different about these humans. But his arrogance overrode his caution. He had been dealing with intimidated species for centuries. Humans would be no different. Ambassador Carter, Vexthal began with smug satisfaction. Have you brought us Earth surrender? Carter stopped in the center of the chamber and looked up at the 12 Council members with eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that had not been there during their previous meeting. No, Carter said simply, I have brought you humanity's counter-proposal. The word counter-proposal sent ripples of confusion through the assembled Council members. Species that faced Council ultimatums did not make counter-proposals. They begged for mercy or submitted to demands. They did not negotiate from positions of strength. You seem to misunderstand your situation, Hive Queen Zaratic clicked angrily. The Council has made its requirements clear. Your compliance is not optional. Carter's response was delivered with terrifying calm. No, Your Majesty, you seem to misunderstand your situation. He raised his tablet, and suddenly the holographic displays throughout the chamber flickered and changed. The Council members found themselves looking at real-time footage from across the galaxy, but it was not what they expected to see. The first image showed New Montana, the agricultural colony that Council intelligence had identified as a soft target. But instead of peaceful farms, the display revealed missile batteries emerging from grain silos, fighter squadrons launching from hidden hangars, and energy shields surrounding the entire settlement. Governor Steve Clark's voice echoed through the chamber as he delivered a message that had been recorded just minutes earlier. This is New Montana Colony to any Council forces in the region. We are fully operational and ready to defend ourselves. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The next image showed the mining operations in Asteroid Belt 7. What the Council had thought were civilian mining platforms had transformed into heavily armed battle stations. Commander Rick Martinez appeared on screen, his friendly miner persona replaced by the cold efficiency of a military commander. Council forces are advised that this asteroid belt is now a restricted military zone, Martinez announced. Any unauthorized vessels will be fired upon without warning. Prime Minister Vexthal golden eyes widened as more displays activated around the chamber. Every human colony that the Council had marked for easy conquest was revealing itself to be a fortified military position. The peaceful settlements were becoming armed camps. The civilian population was moving with military precision. Impossible. Breath, the resonance speaker, its crystalline form pulsing with shocked harmonics. Our intelligence showed these were civilian populations. Dr. Murphy stepped forward, her earlier respectful tone replaced by the voice of someone delivering a scientific analysis. Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see. Every piece of information your spies gathered was carefully crafted to support the illusion that we were weak and unprepared. She activated her own display, showing detailed files on every council species. We have been studying each of your civilizations for 50 years. We know your military capabilities, your psychological weaknesses, and your biological vulnerabilities. You know almost nothing about our true strength. Captain Brooks moved to another control station, his earlier silence replaced by the crisp efficiency of a military briefing officer. Council fleets currently positioned near human colonies are outnumbered and outgunned. Your strategic positions are compromised. Your communication codes have been broken. The aquatic Tidecler Mergon spoke from his water-filled chamber, his voice bubbling with disbelief. How is this possible? We have monitored your species for decades. You showed no signs of such military capability. Carter's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. Because we did not want you to see them. Every diplomat you met was playing a role. Every trader who visited your worlds was gathering intelligence. Every scientist who studied with your people was mapping your weaknesses. Admiral Morrison's image appeared on the main display, transmitted from his flagship somewhere in deep space. His weathered face showed the confidence of a commander who held overwhelming tactical advantage. Council forces have 36 hours to withdraw from human space, Admiral Morrison announced. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is notice that your aggression will be met with overwhelming force. Hive Queen Zaretic attempted to rally the council members. This is impossible. No species could hide such preparations. They are bluffing. Dr. Murphy's response was accompanied by detailed biological scans of the Hive Queen species. Your Majesty, we have developed biological weapons specifically designed to target your species' neural chemistry. We can sever the connection between your hive mind and your warrior castes. Would you like a demonstration? The chamber fell silent as the implications hit home. The humans were not bluffing. They were stating facts with the cold precision of scientists presenting research results. The energy being Luxara pulsed frantically. You cannot have the technology to threaten all council species simultaneously. It would require decades of preparation. Captain Brooks activated another display showing the extent of human intelligence operations. Agent Kate Sullivan has been monitoring your communications for years. Dr. Jennifer Barnes has been studying Tidecler biology on Aquatica. Colonel Paul Wright has been mapping hive mind communication protocols on your homeworld. Each name was accompanied by photographs and detailed mission reports. The council members realized with growing horror that humans had been operating covertly throughout their territories for years, gathering information and positioning assets. Every trade agreement included hidden military advantages. Carter continued. Every scientific exchange gave us access to your technological weaknesses. Every diplomatic meeting provided intelligence on your strategic thinking. The feline prowler Kethrain spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the fear of a predator who had suddenly realized he was prey. How long have you been planning this? Carter's answer sent chills through every council member. Since the first day we learned we were not alone in the universe. You made the mistake of assuming that our desire for peace meant we were incapable of war. General Vorth of the Titan Guard, the Council's military advisor, attempted to maintain some semblance of authority. The Council commands the largest military force in the galaxy. Your threats are meaningless against our superior numbers. Dr. Murphy's response was accompanied by detailed tactical analyses. Your fleets are designed to fight each other using conventional tactics. We have studied your strategies for decades and developed counters for every approach. Your superior numbers mean nothing when we can predict your every move. The displays around the chamber continued to show the transformation of human space. What had appeared to be a scattered collection of vulnerable colonies was revealing itself as the most sophisticated military network ever created. Every human settlement was armed and ready. Every civilian ship was actually a military transport. Every peaceful research station was a weapons development facility. Carter delivered the final blow to the Council's arrogance. You have 48 hours to remove all Council forces from human space and formally recognize our territorial sovereignty. If you refuse, you will discover why Earth's apex predators evolved to hunt in packs. The Council members sat in stunned silence as the reality of their situation became clear. They had not been dealing with a naive young species that could be easily intimidated. They had been facing a civilization that had been preparing for this war since the day of first contact. The humans had spent 50 years pretending to be weak while building the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. They had studied their enemies with scientific precision while maintaining perfect diplomatic facades. They had played the longest game in galactic history and won. Before the first shot was fired, the mask had finally fallen away completely. The Council was about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped being polite. The morning light filtered through the massive windows of the Council chambers as representatives from 47 different species gathered for what many hoped would be a return to normalcy. 3 weeks had passed since the Kethmori incident, and the humans had requested a formal session to address the aftermath. The air felt different now, charged with an undercurrent of tension that hadn't existed before. General Patricia Moore stood at the human podium, her uniform crisp and her bearing professional. She was older than the previous delegation, with silver hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of years spent making difficult decisions. Behind her stood Dr. Jimmy Barnes, a quiet man with gentle features who seemed almost fragile compared to the military personnel who had dominated the recent crisis. Ambassador Helen Scott took her place at the diplomatic station, and the Council members noted how she moved with the same casual confidence they had learned to associate with human capabilities. She was younger than Morrison had been, with an easy smile that no longer fooled anyone in the chamber. High Chancellor Wexstar called the session to order with the traditional words of welcome, but his voice carried none of its usual warmth. The ancient being had overseen countless diplomatic exchanges in his long career, but nothing had prepared him for what he had witnessed during the human response to the Kethmori raiders. The Council recognizes Earth's delegation, Wexstar announced, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light in nervous patterns. We understand you wish to address the recent events and their implications for our continued cooperation. General Moore stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back in military fashion. Thank you, High Chancellor. I want to begin by acknowledging the disruption our actions caused to normal Council procedures. Earth values its relationship with this body and regrets any inconvenience our response may have created. The formal words rang hollow in the chamber. Every representative present had watched the systematic destruction of an entire military force, carried out with an efficiency that defied their understanding of civilized behavior. The humans spoke of inconvenience as if they had simply arrived late to a meeting. Councillor Vexton, whose methane-breathing apparatus clicked nervously, raised a tentacle to speak. General Moore, with respect, we are not concerned about inconvenience. We are concerned about the implications of what we witnessed. Your species demonstrated capabilities that were not disclosed during your initial integration into galactic society. Dr. Barnes moved to the secondary podium, his movements careful and measured. If I may address that concern, Counselor. Humanity never concealed our capabilities. We simply had no reason to discuss them. Our integration focused on peaceful cooperation, trade, and cultural exchange. Military specifications were not part of those discussions. But surely, interrupted Ambassador Zethkri, his crystalline voice carrying a note of desperation, the magnitude of your response exceeded what was necessary. The Kethmori offered to surrender, to pay reparations, to submit to arbitration. These are the foundations of galactic civilization. Ambassador Scott spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the same diplomatic warmth that had characterized human interactions for 15 years. The Kethmori targeted our children, Ambassador. They attacked hospitals, schools, and civilian shelters. In human terms, this represents a fundamental violation of the rules of war. But war itself is what we seek to avoid, protested Observer Yelineth, whose peaceful species had never known conflict. The Council exists to prevent exactly this kind of violence. General Moore's expression softened slightly, and for a moment she looked almost maternal. Observer Yelineth, we understand your perspective. Most species in this chamber have evolved past the need for large-scale conflict. You've built a civilization based on negotiation, compromise, and mutual benefit. It's admirable, and it's why we wanted to join you. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. But evolution doesn't erase what came before. It builds on it. Humans chose to develop beyond our violent origins, but those origins remain part of who we are. When necessary, we can access them. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The humans weren't claiming to be better than other species or more advanced. They were acknowledging that they retained capabilities that others had left behind. Council Security Chief Morndl, who had been analyzing the human military response, stepped forward. General, our analysis suggests that your fleet's response time and coordination exceeded what should have been possible given your stated military assets. How do you explain this discrepancy? Dr. Barnes answered with academic precision. Chief Morndl, you're applying your own cultural assumptions to human military doctrine. Most species maintain their fleets as symbols of sovereignty or for exploration purposes. Human military assets exist for one purpose: to eliminate threats to human civilians. Every ship, every weapon, every tactical doctrine is designed with that single objective in mind. But the thoroughness of your response, Wextar said, his voice barely above a whisper. You didn't just defeat the Kethmori forces. You eliminated their entire capacity for future aggression. Ambassador Scott nodded calmly. That's correct, High Chancellor. Partial victories against raiders simply encourage future attacks. We remove the threat permanently. Councillor Kethelin, representing the few surviving Kethmori colonies, spoke with visible effort. My people understand now that we made a terrible mistake. We attacked humans because we thought they were weak. Peaceful meant weak. We were wrong. The young Kethmori's words hung in the air like a verdict. The entire chamber understood the unspoken message. The humans had been peaceful by choice, not by limitation. General Moore addressed the council with professional courtesy. The question now is how we proceed. Earth remains committed to galactic peace and cooperation. We prefer negotiation to conflict in every possible circumstance, but we will not pretend that conflict is impossible. What does that mean for the Council's authority? Asked Councillor Vexton. If member species can simply opt out of our procedures when they disagree with them, what is the point of having procedures at all? Dr. Barnes stepped forward again, his gentle demeanor making his words more impactful. The Council's authority comes from the consent of its members. We consented to join this body because we believed in its mission. But consent can be withdrawn when fundamental principles are violated. Ambassador Scott elaborated with diplomatic precision. Earth will continue to support Council mediation for all disputes. We'll submit to arbitration, accept rulings, and work within established procedures. But we reserve the right to act independently when the safety of human civilians is at stake. The chamber erupted in nervous murmurs as representatives consulted with their home governments. The humans had essentially declared their intention to remain part of galactic society while maintaining an independent capacity for violence. High Chancellor Wextar called for order, his form flickering with stress. Patterns. This creates a precedent that could destabilize our entire system. If every species reserves the right to act independently when they feel threatened, we return to the chaos of pre-council times. General Moore's response was delivered with quiet confidence. Chancellor, the precedent already exists. The difference is that most species no longer have the capability to act independently. We do. Acknowledging this reality doesn't create instability. Pretending it doesn't exist does. The session continued for hours as representatives grappled with the new reality. The humans participated with the same earnest enthusiasm they had always shown, offering compromise solutions and seeking common ground. But now everyone understood that their cooperation was a gift, not a guarantee. As the formal session concluded, Ambassador Scott made a final statement that would reshape galactic diplomacy forever. The Council serves the cause of peace by providing alternatives to violence. Earth supports this mission completely. But peace is not the absence of the capacity for war. It's the choice to use that capacity wisely. The chamber slowly emptied. As representatives returned to their quarters to report to their home governments, the humans gathered their materials with the same professional efficiency they had always displayed. But now the other species watched every movement with new understanding. Later that evening, the Council's senior members met in private session. The question before them was simple but profound. How do you integrate a species that can choose to leave civilization behind when circumstances require it? The answer, they realized, was that you don't integrate them, you accommodate them. The humans had made it clear that they would remain part of galactic society, but only as long as that society served their interests. It was a partnership of equals, not a relationship of dependencies. As the station's lights dimmed to simulate night, the Council members understood that everything had changed. They had gained a powerful ally in their quest for galactic peace, but they had also learned that some species were fundamentally different from others. The humans would keep their civil mode engaged as long as it served their purposes, but everyone now knew that it was a mode, not a nature, the galaxy had become a more interesting place.